Pardon? On this one, we need 4 or 3. Oh, 3 minimum on anything.
Okay. I'll call the meeting to order. We have no chairperson right now, so I'll get us started. We'll start with the pledge of allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We'll have a moment of silence. I'd like to start this evening by welcoming our new school committee member, Mindy. Thank you for being here, and Louis, thank you for coming back, and we appreciate your service to the school district, and we hope that your time with us is enjoyable and welcome for the ride.
Fasten your seatbelt.
Yeah, fasten your seatbelt.
1-year terms or 3-year terms?
3 years.
3?
Yeah. It's it's a pretty good commitment.
Yeah, it's nice.
We're going to start by working on our 2020-21 school committee officers and standing committees. You have the old standing committees where obviously now that Bev is retired from the board, she can no longer be chair. We have Tammy as vice chair. So at this time, we need to have a motion or a recommendation or a nomination for board chair or committee chair.
I nominate Mr. Tom Kent to be chair.
Robert nominates Tom.
I'll second.
Any more nominations? Any more discussion about the nominations? Seeing as though there's none, all in favor for Mr. Kent?
You ignored us all.
All those in favor of Mr. Kent for chair? Unanimous. I get to pass this over now.
You guys let move chair. This is good.
Huh? No, he's
No.
either way. Tom, did you want to continue with the vice chair nomination?
I'll entertain a motion to nominate someone for the vice chair.
Nominate Tammy. Second.
We have a motion and a second for Tammy. Any other nominations? All in favor?
Congratulations, both of you. You do see the standing committee list. I think it's be wise to go over that and make some decisions about who's going to fill in the spots where Bev was. There's quite a few. I know that Giselle did send you via email at Robert's request kind of an idea of the commitment for some of these, so that you had an idea. I will be honest that I've been here a year, and some of these committees have never met in the year that I've been here, and that's just the nature of some of these committees. So that being said, we have, I'll just go through all of them and make sure that everyone's comfortable staying with it. Adult Education Advisory, Robert, are you comfortable with that?
Yeah, that's fine.
Capital Improvement Plan, Louis and Tom, okay with that?
Yep.
Dropout Prevention Committee, Tom.
Fine.
We have Legislative Representative. Please do not ask me to describe what that is, because I don't really know.
I think
It was, we've had 2 dinners in Caribou in the past 3
Oh,
years
yeah.
to meet with the legislators.
That's right.
I don't foresee that happening in the next year.
Great.
it makes sense the chair would be on that. What's that? It would make sense to me that our board chair would be on
Fine.
that.
I do have time.
Negotiations Committee, we have Mr. Kent, and we need to replace Bev.
Mindy, you interested in that?
I'm not experienced in any of this, but sure, why not?
We'll get your feet wet.
Mindy on that one. Policy Committee, Tammy's on that one. You okay with that, Tim?
Yep.
And replacing Bev?
I think we're okay with just one there, if you want to just put one.
We just have one. You guys okay with that?
If it's not a requirement,
It's not.
then
It's fine.
Professional evaluation, Robert, you
Yeah.
okay with that? PBE Curriculum Committee, Tammy.
Yes.
And, okay, and Bev was the other one,
is that required too?
does not.
That committee has not met because Ben has been presenting all the PB information to the board as presentation.
Continue the same way.
So I don't need two then.
We'll just leave Tammy as the representative. School Lunch Committee, Louis, you okay with that?
Sure.
Strategic Planning Committee, Tammy. Technology Committee.
There was mention about that one not being necessary anymore.
Unless we revisit the strategic plan, but right now we're all set with our strategic plan.
Technology Committee, Louis, you okay with that?
Sure.
Vocational Advisory, it was Bev. And I think we meet about 5 times a year.
Yeah, 5-6 times.
Usually those meetings are right after school hours. We try to meet 3:30, 4 o'clock, something like that. And they usually don't last more than an hour.
Has there typically been a Zoom availability for that?
Not in the past, but there's nothing saying that we can't move to that.
So I can take that.
I won't take that.
Okay, perfect.
And I can take back my spot on the finance committee too. Mr. Kent helped me out with that in March,
Okay,
unless you wanted to stay there.
No,
okay, so we'll switch Robert back to finance.
He helped me out there in March.
And then your VUESC board members, we had Bev, Tammy, and Tom, and last meeting, Louis took Bev's place.
So what are you trying to say?
It's your style. So are we good with the standing committees?
fine. You need a motion on that?
I don't think we need for the standing committees.
Okay.
We are on item 4, Mr. Chairman.
Yes. Any adjustments to the agenda?
I have none.
Okay, we'll move to item 5, period of public participation on any items on the agenda.
Any folks out there want to speak to the agenda items?
None, so we'll now move to approve the minutes of the meeting of the 17th, of July 13th, 2020.
So moved. I'll second, Mr. Kent.
Moved by Tammy, seconded by Robert. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Vote. Approved. I need an approval of the financial statements. If you've reviewed them and don't see any changes, which I didn't, but
I think I had a question.
okay.
So that's up until the end of May.
We tabled this one a couple times because Lynn was out. We tabled it.
We did table it,
Yeah.
okay, that's what I thought. My question that I have is just cost center 6. Is, everything else is 60, 70, 80% of cost, or of budget, excuse me. But cost center 6 is 16% above the whole budget as of the end of May. Just wondering.
This is just because we hadn't yet invoiced for Giselle's salary to be covered by the Valiant budget. She's paid out of Madawaska, and we need to invoice, that's all that is. It's
Yeah,
just,
so at the end of the year, that'll shake.
At the end of the year first, yeah.
Tracks, nobody got raises.
Any other questions? I'll entertain a motion, we approve it.
I'll move, Mr. Kent.
Moved by Robert, second by Louis. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? approved. Item number 8, Mr. Superintendent, you have the floor.
You have in your packet a DOE media release. That was a letter that went out to superintendents, and it spoke about Governor Mills announcing that Maine would be supporting schools with the state coronavirus relief funds, so they're calling CRF funds, 165 million statewide. And the allocations were based on a formula that had several factors that included a base, special education, ELL, disadvantaged homeless substitute software, technology, PPE, health assessment, cleaning supplies. So it covered, a wide variety of different things that are all going to be important as we plan for this school year. The caveat with this is that we need to spend now. The money is gone as of December 31st. So something that Giselle and Lucy, I was supposed to help today, but Giselle and Lucy were running point on it with some of the applications and looking at, itemizing everything that we've bought to date. So we can go back as far as March 1st, things that cost that we've
Just COVID expense.
COVID related. If it's something that was in the budget, we can't supplement it, supplant it, you can't. If it's something in next year's budget, the budget we just got approved, that can't be approved. It has to be coronavirus specific, and it cannot be a budgeted item in your regular budget.
So we have separate line items for revenue and expenses, just for COVID expenses?
Exactly, yeah. So we have running spreadsheets going on, and the thing is, we have two pots of money now. We have what I announced earlier in this pandemic. We had CARES fund, or the ESSER funds, if you will. Our ESSER funds were based on our Title I allotment data. So we have about $104,695, in CARES funding. This CRF funds, we have $376,656. So quite a bit more funds with the CRF funds. And because it's spent now, we are going to try to spend all of that before we touch the CARES funding, which has an expiration date of, we're not sure, 21 or 22, it might even be September 22. So we have lots of time to spend the CARES funds, although we did have to work on the application just to get the ball moving.
Just a question.
Yep.
Some of the things that I've been reading, there's going to be quite a shortfall in 2021, 22, and 22, 23 because of COVID.
Correct.
Is there a chance those funds will go away?
Yeah, this is one-time funding. It's one time only. It's spend now and hold on. That's basically it. But what we're trying to do is foresee things in the next few years that we can purchase now and possibly, reduce some budget line items. For example, we'll buy technology that we could have only hoped for in the future, but we have the funds for it now. We may be able to reduce some technology budget line items in the future because we're not buying, this and that. It's kind of hard to predict, but we're doing the best we can. We're also looking at some safety measures that need to go into the facilities, and that's all different things. There's a now with parents not being able to walk their kids into school the same way as they have in the past. We have Mr. Chassis looking at a possible new driveway entry for Madawaska Elementary School, where you have the rainbow right now where the buses go. We have a second rainbow for the parent drop off, so parents could drop their kids off right in front of school. That's directly related to coronavirus because we have a need for a new drop off point now. So different things like that we're thinking about and looking at. But I did want to just let you know that we have these funds available. So
For the our next meeting, could we have a summary of what those?
absolutely,
spent on?
yeah, we could show
How much of it
you.
was PPE, how much of it was cleaning supplies, how much of it was
Absolutely.
physical plant projects?
Yeah. We bought thermal scanners. We've already bought a lot, but we have a lot.
Yeah, just a general idea.
Yep.
Is there gonna be a reconciliation on these dollars? Assuming.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like any other.
Right.
Right.
So are we needing prior approvals or anything on any of these expenses? Because we don't wanna spend money and then they come and
Yeah, so one thing that we've asked our administrative team, that we put a document together where they're putting their item and they're putting a description of why it's coronavirus related, so that we have that explanation to go in our application. So we've got to write the application first, and then the state's got to approve it before we can move forward.
Yeah, because you'll definitely want that approval.
Absolutely. Any questions on coronavirus relief funds? The second document that I gave you was Governor Mills' statement on revenue forecasting, and that's what Tom was mentioning a while ago. It's not a bright, sunny picture that is painted here. It appears that the state federal fund revenues will decrease by $500 million this year, so 524 million, and then 434 in fiscal year 22, 449 in fiscal year 23. Nothing's been mentioned about curtailments or anything like that. I think right now the governors, and I speak plural of governors, their approach is to work in unity to beg and plead the federal government to do more to assist, so that they don't have to make decisions at the state level that are going to hurt, schools and hospitals. So right now, this is more of just a picture, and we'll have to wait and see what this all means as we move forward. But lots of less funding coming to the state because of this. Any questions on
We'll
that?
just have to keep monitoring everything and.
All the time. And I know, at the state level, she's kind of put a blanket statement the commissioner has of, no unnecessary spending. We're gonna have that local, we're gonna set that local tone as well. Right now, we have these CRF funds that are kind of, dictating the things that we can buy, but we're gonna be buying school supplies for kids, and that's less school supplies we're gonna have to buy from our general fund. So we'll be talking about what that means for our overall school budget as we get further down the line. I didn't have it on the, never mind. I thought we had, I had forgot to put it. The next item under superintendent is Valley Unified updates. I did reach out to Scott Brown last week. He tried emailing me and giving me a call. I missed his call. I tried calling him again today, and we just haven't been able to connect. I wanted to find out the results of a conversation he said he was having with the commissioner specific to our project. That conversation, I believe, was last week before a state board of education meeting. Haven't been able to connect with him to find out how that went. I also looked for the state board of education minutes in their on their website, and those aren't posted yet. So I'm kind of in the dark about what that all was about, and if the school construction committee had any conversations about Valley Unified. Right now, I just don't know. What I can do is follow up with you all in an email once I have that conversation with Scott and he's able to update me on what those conversations were. But I did want to just bring that to you. I was hoping to have some information tonight, but I do not. And then think tank updates. We were supposed to meet tomorrow at 5:30. I've asked the think tank members to consider postponing till next week, just because although you guys are meeting today and you can have some conversations about that in preparation for tomorrow, the other boards don't. SAD 27 is meeting on Wednesday, and then SAD 33, who really needs to meet and discuss about all this because they haven't had a really good opportunity to network around it during a meeting. They're meeting on Thursday, and I want them to all have those conversations before we go to a think tank, so you have more information. So I've asked Louis and Tammy to look at their schedule and see if they can meet next week. I've done the same thing with the other members. In the meantime, we should have conversations about what it is we want Tammy and Louis to bring to the table or have discussions about during the next meeting.
Were there already specific talking points for this meeting, or is it just an open slate?
It's open slate.
Conversation.
It is, yeah. And I asked each member to forward me any specific things they wanted to talk about, but I didn't receive anything. I was gonna go in there and say, okay, let's start with the interlocal agreement, and maybe start from there, and then get moving. My concern is that My concern is that given what's happening, in the state with coronavirus and everything and the funds, my concern is if we kick this can too far down the road and we don't show any momentum, I don't want that the commissioner now says, you know what, I think the project needs to go away or go somewhere else. I want to be able to show some progress and some movement, which is, it's important why we're at least having some conversations. So I don't know what your thoughts are about that.
Where are we at with the lawsuits?
Oh, I did reach out to our attorney for Valley Unified, Kate, and she did let me know last Thursday that right here, I received an attached notice of a hearing for our case. The hearing's been set for September 3rd, and it's just a call. She's invited me to be on the call if I'd like, and that's the next step in the process. So on September 3rd, it is a 10 o'clock a.m. Telephone hearing.
And that's, is that on the Rossignol case or?
Yeah, that's the Valley.
Where we've asked for a directed verdict to throw it away?
That's what we've asked, and it's basically been on hold because of COVID, and this is to get the ball rolling again.
So is it, not to push kick the can down the road like you were saying, but it'd be nice to have some direction, not necessarily criticizing what's going on, but we've got the lawsuit, we haven't heard from the Department of Education what's going on, yet we're having a think tank meeting that we don't even know this project is happening.
Yeah. Frustration.
Very frustrating, yeah.
I've yet to be able to get confirmation from the commissioner's office about, if she'll be able to come up. I imagine things are very hectic with the school reopening throughout the state, so that's not on her priority list.
What? Hasn't SAD 27 also filed a lawsuit of some sort against us?
This is only the Valley United Citizens, Concerned Citizens is the only lawsuit.
Okay. Then why wouldn't they let us use their attorneys?
I think
That we were all using.
I think it had to do with a conflict of interest, that they felt that had they had their own legal counsel throughout this process, concessions wouldn't have been made the same way that they had. This is what I understand. That it's, when you're represented by the same law firm, that law firm is not necessarily looking out for each individual's best interests. They're looking at the best interests of the whole project.
I think that in the think tank, that's some of the things that has to be addressed. Are we still going to cooperate? Is everyone still going to cooperate? It appears right now that they don't want to cooperate. I look at things this way, Ben, and I'm gonna use specific individuals. What's his name from New Canada? Jake Theriault. New Canada voted in favor of it. He should be representing his constituency's wishes, and he's not. He's following Toby and Gary. Same thing with Gary. Watergrass voted for it. And, they're not representing their constituencies. This should be brought out in the think tank.
It's a very,
It's tough, I know,
it is.
but it's just very frustrating.
I think, and I'm not here to defend one board or another. I think the voter representation on a board is going to be very important to SCD 27 when now, but when a school is being operated, I think that's going to be essential, but that's all conversations we're gonna have in the RSU formation. It has to be part of that process. So that's all gonna come up. It's just, how do we get to all agree that we should explore this RSU? We don't know that we're ready to all sign on the line yet, and that's where we have to get.
Well, it all is gonna get, I see it all getting right back to day one again, after having spent $2 million on the site. And that's where I think the prior board here always stood on the basis, and the town of Madawaska stood on the basis that the Frenchville site we can support. The site in Fort Kent, we cannot support. And we have to stand firm on that in the think tank as well as on the Valley Unified Board. And the other thing that I would stand very firm on is we will not, under any circumstances, release the local control of our elementary schools. Period. End of story.
I mean, from the sounds of things, you're right, they want to go back. And they're gonna want to go back until they get what they want. So, I mean, you can just wipe away everything that we've done, come to this point, and start all over again, and they would have no problems with that. But I do.
Well, then it's not just us, it's also the voters.
Right.
The voters, we brought to them, and that was my point of contention at that think tank meeting. We were voting on A, and at think tank meeting, we were talking about Z, turning the whole thing upside down and basically going back to square one. And that would mean the way that, because that local control of that elementary school was right in the top items of having, proceeding. And we're talking about possibly doing away with that at the first think tank meeting. That's not what anybody was voting for in all of the votes that we've taken thus far. So if we're reneging on those parameters of how we proceed, then we really gotta go back to square one and start all over again. And let the taxpayers and the citizens vote knowing what they're voting for. Because we said we're voting on this, but now we're starting to change the story, at the 11th hour, and that's not right.
So this is our agenda. Our agenda is just to defend what's already worked to this point. They're all firing bullets at it, but that's what our agenda is, just to defend what's already happened in place.
And one thing that Scott Brown did reiterate to me on our conversation before he met with the commissioner was that, in reviewing our site selection process, he felt it to be a very good process, a very fair process. What's difficult is that those processes, are governed by local control, but our local is now a region in that, right? So local control doesn't necessarily mean Madawaska or Fort Kent. Local control means Valley Unified. And I think that's some of the hard time that people are grappling with. We didn't have local control of that. We did have local control, but it was regional local control. And that's difficult.
I think our representatives know where this board stands. They just have to defend it.
That's all I have for superintendent.
Okay, thank you. Full business, reintegration plan update.
You have a paper copy of our school reintegration guide. I also want to share something with you. And I'll put on the screen for you to view. This is a website that has been developed for our school reintegration. It is not live yet. It will be live as soon as the board or the school committee approves our proposed plan that we're presenting tonight. This will be under the domain vuesc.org. So the vuesc.org will take you right to our school reintegration resources. It has the following resources. It has the guide that's in front of you in paper copy. It'll have a link to the live document so that when changes are made, they're made on the fly, and you'll always have a new update date on the cover page so that you know if your copy of it, if you like to print out things, is live or not. What's nice about having the digital guide, and I'm clicking on it right now, is that digital guide has links that are live, so it'll take you to different places, whereas the paper copy won't. You know, if I'm talking about the CRF funds, there's a link here for CRF funds that'll take you right to the State Department. So that's what's nice about the electronic document. There is a resource for the main return to classroom instruction framework so that folks can see the correlation between our plan and what the department has put out for a framework for us to follow. We have a resource for the American Academy of Pediatrics Reopening Guide. That is there as well because that has been used in the development of our plan. We have the CDC school and childcare resources, so that'll take you right there. And then we have an FAQ section, which we put out last week when we sent out a message to families about our plan is coming. This is what we're working on. And in that message that we sent out, it had FAQs to the different components of the plan. So for example, here is the physical health and safety Q&A. And folks can go in here, type their question that they have, and we have staff who are answering these questions as they're proposed. Mr. Karen has been really instrumental in putting this together and keeping up with those responses. So it's going to be a wonderful resource for folks who are all going to be asking the same questions, where we have this Q&A section where a lot of those have been put up, and that's for all of the different components of our plan. We have the school reintegration outline. This is what I presented to you all last meeting, the slideshow that just basically shows how we have come to where we are. We are going to have our school enrollment forms live on this. And what I mean by enrollment is we are going to need to know if kids are coming to school in classroom as proposed in this plan, or if they're staying home for remote learning. Here's an example of what that looks like. This is the one for Madawaska Elementary. It has, it has the introduction, and it says, please read the following notes carefully. Number one, before responding, please review the reintegration guide. And I have a link to the guide there. Note two, please note that your selection is understood to be a commitment for 1/4 of the academic year and can be revisited at that time. The first quarter of the 2020-21 school year ends on November 6th. We're asking folks to make a commitment for at least a quarter of the year, because we can't be going down a week of school and now all of a sudden, 50 remote learners want to come back to school because their friends are. We can't manage that. It's going to be difficult to manage to start. So we need a commitment from folks for at least a quarter of the year, and then we can revisit and see where the numbers lie. And people are going to know a lot more about this virus by that time as well. Note three, please complete a new form per school-age child in your family. So you complete one form per kid. And then parents, guardians are encouraged to communicate with each other as to not duplicate responses. It's collecting the parent's email address, their name, their physical residence, their phone number, so that we can update the alert system, so that we have the correct information, and the name of their child. They're selecting the age level of their child, and then let me just make sure I put some answers here so that it'll let me go on to the next section.
Can I interrupt for
Sure.
a second? You said you're asking for a commitment up until November, the first quarter.
Correct.
As uncertain as everything has been with COVID, I can see a lot of people, one way or the other, saying, a weekend saying, oh my God, this isn't working for us, can we change?
And we discussed the flexibility from going in to out is going to be a little easier. It's the kids that are out that want to come in, and we don't know if we can adhere to these guidelines now with X amount of more kids, you know?
And I get that, but I'm sure you can see where I'm
Absolutely.
going, because I
Yeah.
mean, everything's been turned upside down.
And we'll work with folks, I mean, we'll work with families on a case-by-case basis, but I feel if we don't at least say it,
Right.
we don't want it to be wishy-washy, I guess. So a parent is choosing one of three options. My child will be attending school in classroom, following the guidelines identified in our Valley Unified Reintegration Guide. My child will be participating in remote learning, following the expectations outlined in the guide, or I will be enrolling my child in homeschooling, because there are quite a few parents who have already told us that once this plan comes out, they're gonna make a decision and they may be homeschooling. So they're choosing one of these three options. If they choose in-classroom instruction, so they're coming to school, we're asking about transportation. Are they using the bus or will they not? Because we need to know how many kids are going to be on each bus. We can only put 2 children per seat with face masks being worn. So 2 children per seat. We need to know if we need to send a second bus out to Grand Isle or wherever. We just need to know those numbers. Face masks are mandatory for in-classroom instruction, so I'm going to share that with you as part of our plan. All face masks are mandatory. So we're asking, do folks need us to supply them with masks? Are they going to bring their own? Or are they going to receive a note from their doctor to wear a face shield instead of a mask? The only exception to not wearing a face mask is if you have a doctor's note for a face shield. And that may be because of asthma or other respiratory conditions. That is the only expectation for both staff and students. And that's per the state of Maine guidelines in their framework. That's a non-negotiable for the students. The only flexibility is the 4-year-olds, our pre-K students. Pre-K students have to wear their mask on the bus, but at school, it's only a recommendation. So we're going to do a lot of teaching and role modeling in the pre-K level for face mask wearing. It won't be as strict as the other grade levels.
What about some of your special ed children?
Face mask or face shield. So as long as they get
Must.
that, it has to be.
Well, you have children that will just take them off. They don't understand it.
We've told our administration that if they thought anything before this was difficult, then get ready. Because all we're going to be doing is fighting with face masks and face shields. It's going to be all we're doing all day long. Sorry, Wayne and Lee's. It's not going to be easy. And that's going to be with the adults as well. I've seen it just by, working with school lunch programs, and it's going to be very, very difficult. We're going to allow for face mask breaks, and teachers will have an understanding of what that means and how it's done safely with 6-foot distancing, and you can build those in your day. But the entire day cannot become a face mask break. We've got to get kids acclimated to it and get used to it. After we ask about the face masks, we need to know if their children have any social, emotional, behavioral, or mental health needs that are very specific to when school starts. So we're just trying to find that information out before those kids come here. So that's what they'd be answering if they're coming into school. If they are staying home for remote learning instead, we are asking if they need the technology device. We are asking them if their internet capabilities are robust enough, or if they found a location where they have that internet capability. And then we're asking them to review the core values matrix for remote learning, and we'll discuss that in a minute. And then we're also asking if they have social, emotional, behavioral, or mental health needs. We need to know this about that group of population too, because even though they're at home, they're still our students, and we have to meet their needs remotely if that's how they're choosing to get their education. The final choice is, of course, for homeschooling, which we don't control, but in that selection, I am giving them the link to what the guidelines are for homeschooling. I think folks that think homeschooling is going to be a breeze do not realize that there is some subsequent year data that needs to be sent to the school with regards to the learning that occurred throughout that year, be it a portfolio, a standardized test, an assessment by a licensed teacher. They have to have something. And then if they are choosing to continue, I'm actually giving them the link for homeschooling enrollment. That can all be done online now. I'm hoping that we have not a lot, because we're providing folks the flexibility of You can stay home and we'll provide you the education through remote learning. But I feel that some people may think that remote learning of what it was a few months ago, they may not understand that it's revamped now. And it's a little more streamlined for student success. So this is the survey that's going to go out. We're hoping to get that all out this week so that we can start to collect data, because Wayne needs a good week of sorting through that data to figure out his last minute plans before school starts the following week. And we're gonna have to have that. Not all families will respond right away, and that's why when they start to roll in and we start to populate, the kids, then we'll start to get on the phone and call families and say, hey, did you see that go out? And make sure that everyone's responding before the first day of school. So those are the enrollment forms that are there, and then we also have links to our Valley Unified blog and our superintendent blog on this page. Mr. Karen did mention that we're also going to be putting some social emotional support information on this page as well, so that there's some quick links to different things that folks need. So that's going to be there as well. Like I said, this is going to go live as soon as tomorrow, hopefully, and then we're going to start to push things out. Specific to the plan, everything is included in that document that I gave you that's in front of you. I'm going to try to give you the real quick tour. Stop me at any time if you have a question. We start with an introduction to the Valley Unified Plan. We talk about the teams that put this together. We talk about our experience this spring and how we've learned from it. We introduce folks to the timeline for reintegration. And then we get into how our plan is based on the framework for Maine's reopening plan. Maine's reopening plan is very, very, it's wonderful, and I'm glad the state has done this for it, but they've also tied the CRF funds to us being able to use those funds. We have to follow the 6 requirements for safely opening schools in the fall. These are non-negotiable. In fact, when we go apply for the CRF funds, they're going to make us attest to all of these things are happening in our plan in order to get approval of those funds. So number 1 is symptom screening at home before coming to school. We have actually ordered fridge magnets for each family with the symptom checklist that families should be going over every day before kids come to school. Physical distancing and facilities. Adults have to maintain the 6-foot distance. Children, it's 3 feet while we're in a green designated zone, which Rouge County is. So we can get all students back with 3-foot distancing. That's not a problem. What becomes a challenge is during lunch and breakfast time, 6 feet must be maintained. Wayne asked me a while ago if he could do 5 feet. I said, absolutely not. It's got to be 6. And so figuring out how lunch is going to work. I think we're going to be starting lunch really early and going later in the afternoon with repeated shifts because we just need to have that 6-foot distance because the face mask is coming off, obviously, for lunch. So that's a condition, and cleaning the facilities on a regular basis is a condition. Face mask coverings, as I mentioned to you, that is not optional. It is only, you're only allowed to not wear a face mask when you get the doctor's note to allow you to wear a face shield. Hand hygiene, we must educate our students and staff on appropriate hand hygiene. PPE, we have ordered and secured PPE. The state is also going to be sending us some from an order we did from a statewide database that they put out. And then we need a plan for return to school after illness, and we need to know what that looks like.
So parents that can't take their kids' temperatures at home, or those that don't have those supplies.
We are gonna, and that's what we were supposed to ask in the survey. Thank you, Robert. We need to ask that in the survey because we'll supply them one. We'll make arrangements to try and supply them with one if we can. And that's a really good point.
And Mr. Sue, Dr. Hart is here. And Dr. Hart is our acting school health physician, school health advisor from Northern Maine Medical Center. And do you want to talk a little bit about the possibility of us doing something cooperative?
Right, so Northern Medical Center really takes this very seriously, and as part of our outreach, we'd love to provide enough thermometers to go around for all the families at home. However, so far we haven't been able to find a supply. These are So if we can find a supply, that's what we're going to do. Working on it. And then I'm available here to ask and to answer any of the medical questions you might have about what this means for your child or grandchild or future friend.
Awesome. It's a great segue because our next section is the physical health and safety section of our plan, which is highlighted by our health advisory. Dr. Hart has been instrumental in helping us with those plans. I don't know if she realized what she was getting into, but we love having her on board because it's been really great to have a room full of administrators debating, we're not fighting, we're debating on something and then shoot a message over to our health advisor for the health aspect of it and get, some help with that. So that's been really nice. So we're definitely going to continue accessing that network as well. We use the CDC school decision tree that talks about community outbreak and how that impacts your decision making. And that's where we got into our indexing. The state of Maine did their own index. As I mentioned, they've coded each district with a green, yellow, or red distinction. To our surprise, on day one, last Friday, every county in Maine got a green distinction. So Aroostook, all the way to York, they all have green, so every school can open if they so choose. We felt it was important to put our own regional index. So this is something I shared with you last time. We're going to feel a lot more comfortable having some kind of way to determine what's best for our schools.
So say maybe every state county green, but what's their parameter of green, yellow, red?
What you see right here, Robert.
Yeah. So that's something that I'm trying to find out. I'm in a statewide school health for physicians and school nurses phone call. We talk to infectious disease experts across the state, including the people who advise the CDC, make the decisions they advise them. And they have yet to share that with me exactly. But more importantly, Mercer County is a little different. So Holton becomes an area of a high outbreak amongst their population, but we have none here. I don't want our schools to have to follow the state designated county-wide color. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So I plan to find out more about how we're coming up with that.
Yeah, if we could compare their benchmark against ours.
Sure, I know that we're much more strict, because if you think about Cumberland County,
Well, yeah, you can get more.
right, but if you compare us to other states, we're amazing. So even Cumberland County is not that scary of a place to be compared to the rest of the nation. So it's relative risk. And I know at least for Northern Maine Medical Center policies, we've been much more strict than what the governor says, because statewide is different than Aroostook, and which is different than St. John Valley. We've had no new cases for a few months now.
Thank you. So that's why we put together our regional index, and we went through this 0 to 5. If we feel that we have 0 to 5 active COVID related incidences in our region is defined as St. John Valley, we feel that school can continue. If that grows to 6 to 19, we would recommend a hybrid learning model at that time. Hybrid is defined as trying to get pre-K to grade 4 students in school and students older than grade 4 in a remote learning, just so we can socially distance them, possibly between the two buildings. Pre-K, K and 1 might be at Madawaska Elementary, 3 and 4 might be here at the middle high school, just so we can get that 6-foot distance. Full remote learning would begin if we had 20 or more active cases. That means things are ramping up here in our local area, and we don't want the schools to be an incubator for that. And then if we do have a school outbreak, an isolated case in our school, we feel that can be controlled by the cohort being sent home or kept home while we have folks tested. Although I know in experience of what's happened with some other things, the minute we have one kid in our schools, I don't think we're going to have to worry about the other kids coming back to school. It's just the nature of it. In fact, if there's an outbreak in Fort Kent, you're probably going to have most of the kids here in Madawaska not going to school because it's just the nature of it. So we hope and we pray that we can do this safely, and what's happening in our region is what the
So if there is one positive case, are we screening, are we testing students and teachers? If we do have one positive at MES?
And well, then that's the case. So if it's not only the student, right? What if the student's family, mom has COVID, right? It's having communication about that, and that's going to come later in the plan about communicating that with the school, but then also contact tracing. Okay, where's that student been? Who they've been around? And that's why controlling that cohort is going to be so important. Where we're really asking our principals to really think about making sure that this class does not mingle with another classes and trying to really get that. But obviously, yeah, if there's an outbreak, we're obviously recommending they go get tested and we find out all the answers at that time.
There's no testing being done at the school, everything is by their primary care.
Correct.
And we're gonna have an algorithm across all the primary care providers, where it's very specific on where they go to get tested. So there's gonna be, I'm gonna share this with Fish River yet, we haven't finalized it, but it's gonna be very much, we have one positive, all the children from that cohort are asked to stay home until for 14 days, regardless of whether or not they test negative. And that's because you have a 14-day incubation period. So we can't say, okay, you just got tested negative, you can come back tomorrow. We can't do that. So, but for people that develop symptoms within that 14 days, they should be tested. And that goes through the regular primary care office. Or in some cases, if they're just have a sniffle, they're not very sick, our swab and send clinic is a little easier, kinder, and gentler. It's only an anterior nasal swab. It doesn't go all the way to your brain, like my nephew said. That's right. My nephew had that done. He said it went to his brain. But so it's a nicer thing. We have to wait for the state to send that result back. So the time that it takes to get that test back will depend on what's going on with the entire state. But for very symptomatic kids, and we would evaluate them fully in our respiratory symptom clinic. But for kids that are fine and you just want to know, we would do a swab test.
I'm jumping around then, sorry.
That's okay.
But your instruction choice learning model, it says here remote learning will be available to those learners who are health compromised and or have family members who are health compromised. So when you showed us the first survey, it sounds like it's voluntary. We can choose in or out. But here it says, do we have to, so the person that wants to do remote learning, they have to prove that they
don't.
Are immune compromised?
They don't. And maybe I can remove that from here so that it doesn't insinuate that.
Robert, just a point that I was going to mention when you asked your other questions. I have two grandsons. They go to Greeley in Cumberland. They live in Cumberland, Maine. The one that's in the 6th grade, he will be going to school 2 days a week in school and 3 days at home remotely. The special needs one will be 4 days and 1 day at home. And that was dictated by the school. So everybody's setting their own
And different pictures.
parameters.
than
Yeah.
most people. Symptom screening before coming to school. So I'm identifying this as number one of the 6 requirements, and then we're talking about it here. As I mentioned, we've ordered this fridge magnet for every family, so they have that quick screening tool that they can use in the morning just before getting on the bus. And that's going to be important. We have the contact information for each school so that they know where to call if there are symptoms. And it's going to be the same rule of thumb all across the board. If a kid is feeling ill, they're going home. If they're sick, they're going home. And we're not going to have them sit in the nurse's office for half an hour and maybe pass gas and then they feel better. If they're feeling sick, they're going home. And we're not going to mess around with that. Screening upon arrival to school. So we have some thermal scanners that have been secured. You stand in front of it, it immediately takes your temperature, and it has a message that says a And temperature normal. And if you have a fever, it will alarm, and the student is brought to our safety room, for further, further questioning, and then ultimately sent home. So we don't want, and the same thing for staff. So everyone is getting screened upon coming to school, so that we're at least following that screening guideline. We did have some discussion back and forth about whether or not we should be screening kids on the bus. Ultimately, we deferred to medical advice, and also we used the American Pediatrics Guide that basically outlines that less adults you have on the bus, the better. So we won't be having a screening monitor on the bus. We're just going to hope that folks are doing the home screening before getting on the bus, and we're hoping that they'll do that responsibly. Physical distancing in facilities, number 2 of the requirement. We're going to make sure that we are trying to do the best that we can. We'll have floor markers that are going to be showing folks where they normally get in line, what it looks like, just like a shop and save, where you should be standing if you're in line. We're going to try to create one-directional hallways as best we can. So one stairway at Madawaska High School might be an up stairway, and another one might be a down stairway. We've asked the principals to think about transitioning, not on a bell where everyone goes in the hallway and then goes to their next class, but have some kind of other system for transitioning, so that, again, one classroom in the hallway is much better than, 15 classrooms in the hallway. So working on that. We're going to work on the gathering size limits. There will be no assemblies. In fact, we're going to be asking you to approve in our calendar to allow us to send only half of the school to school on Thursday, day 1, and then the other half of that school on day 2, just so we can go through protocols with smaller group sizes. I'll get to that when we talk about the calendar in a bit. Face mask coverings, again, that is a requirement. We have a cute little chart here to talk about pre-K is a recommendation, but everyone is a requirement. And you need a doctor's note if you have a medical condition. You need a note for the face shield. PPE, we've got all the PPE for special ed staff who work very, very closely with students, nursing staff who may be working with infected individuals. We were going to have all the correct PPE for that as well. Hand hygiene training, number 4 of the 6 requirements. That's something that we're going to be implementing on day 1 of school. So part of the day is learning how to wash your hands. And that's pre-K, kindergarten, all the way to grade 12. We're not going to take for granted that a 17-year-old stinky adolescent male knows what it means to properly wash their hands. Got one at home that, questions sometimes.
Ben,
Yes,
can we go back to number 3?
sure.
So just quickly, when you were showing, I'm gonna attend school and my child will provide their own mask, I need a mask, has a letter to wear a face shield, and then you had that other slide. Are you opening up yourself up for debate
On the
survey?
form, I don't believe there wasn't other. I hope not.
I saw other,
There will not be another. It's one or the.
well, right there.
So I need a face mask. I do not need a face mask. I'll supply our own, or I will get a doctor's note.
And there's other,
Oh, there is other.
yeah. I saw that earlier and I thought, ooh, you're opening yourself
There
up.
will not be other.
Yeah.
Let me go delete that now. Good catch.
You're opening
Yeah,
yourself.
everyone would have clicked other.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Hand hygiene, you have hand sanitizer too, you got it throughout the building?
Mr. Sheffield?
Yes.
Yes, okay.
Every room.
Is it ethanol or methanol?
Isopropyl.
Shared equipment supplies, we've let our principals know that we're discouraging any shared supplies. In the past, that was always, I'm thinking about Project Rise, they share everything. No one's gonna be sharing any supplies. Your supplies are your supplies. And we're going to use our CRF funds to get supplies for all kids, so they have individual supplies and we're not sharing, label them and do our best for that. don't know if it's mentioned here, we're also retrofitting a couple more of our water fountains with the bottle filling stations. We won't be drinking from the fountain. It will be all bottle fill. Kids will bring in their own bottles of water and no sharing that way. Social, emotional, behavioral, mental health. So we go through a section on the importance of that, the mental health of students, and how we're going to be requiring our teachers to go through some education on social, emotional, and mental health. Same thing for our staff. We're going to talk to you all about an idea that we have that we'd like to propose to help with our staff needs with regards to mental health, because we only have one social worker in this district, and if she is going to be expected to help every student with social emotional needs and every staff, Connie's very good, but I don't know that she'll be able to do that. So we'll talk to you about that as well. We have our school-based service resource people, so we have a table for all of our folks in each school and the resources we have. So these are your Madawaska school resource folks. It's going to be important for parents to know who to speak to when they have a question about their social, emotional, mental, or behavioral health needs. We get into academic programs and student learning. We talk about the teacher readiness process of our PD at the end of last school year, how we need to recapture learning when students come back to school. We're going to be asking you and the approval of the calendar to allow us to delay the start of pre-K by 2 weeks. We feel that by doing that, our kindergarten students can have the pre-K teacher working with them and the kindergarten teacher to really prepare those younger students. And also not having the pre-K there, which is going to be all hands on deck when they do come. It comes at a perfect time because we're proposing they come in on September 21st is when our high schoolers go out for harvest. So we'll have less kids on the bus and that type of thing. So we really want to delay the start of pre-K and focus on the kiddos that we have K through 6 at the elementary school. And that's all because they need to recapture that learning. They don't have the same school day requirements. The school day requirements are waived this year again for all students. So it's, yeah. Valley Unified Middle High School. So this is what we're proposing for the start of the school year. We would say that on Thursday, August 20, Wayne is bringing in half of his students. And Wayne might decide, 7th, 8th, and 9th grade is coming on Thursday, and then 10th, 11th, 12th is coming on Friday. Again, that will allow him to have talking moments with smaller cohorts of kids, less kids in the hallway, to see how that runs the first day. And then the following week, we're back to normal. But we think it's important. Same thing with Lee's on the 3rd and the 4th, bring in half the kids on day 1, half. And they will communicate that with the families from the school. Every school in Valley Unified is going to do a little bit different, but that's going to be their responsibility for doing that. And then delaying the start of the pre-K as well. Common expectations for hybrid and remote learning. This is where we share with folks that what you had for remote learning from March to June is not going to be the same thing you're going to see in this remote learning. We've created some core values for remote learning specific to the different age levels. So this is an example of the elementary core values matrix. This was created and designed by our teachers in having conversations with them about what they struggled with, what they succeeded in. We also used the parent data and the survey we sent for remote learning that the parents filled out. We also used the student data from the survey we sent the middle high school kids for there. So this all comes from what people struggled with and what they had successes. And it's based on our core values: respect, honesty, responsibility. And it's specific to a couple of different indicators: technology use, communication, academics, and social and soft skills. So it's really a guide for this is how you do this the right way. No one's coming to Zoom in their PJs anymore. No one's turning on their camera for a second, then leaving and going to work. So this identifies a lot of that. In addition to that, we have put together a SOP for our educators. Again, this was designed and informed by groups of teachers. So they are saying this about themselves, which is really important about how they can make this manageable for their students who are at home and the parents who have jobs and they can't really manage it. Now, obviously, middle high school, a little bit easier than the elementary. But even with the elementary, we think that putting a really thoughtful, some thoughtful core values together with some good SOPs for the teachers, we think we can make it more manageable. Will it ever be perfect for a 4 or 5-year-old? No. Nothing replaces a live classroom teacher. That's why even in a hybrid model, we got to get those kids to school. The young ones have to be in school. So this goes through the SOPs for teachers, specific to remote instruction, remote communication, remote technology, and professional obligations. It was awesome to hear teachers say, listen, we shouldn't have part-time jobs while we're on our real job. We shouldn't be on social media while we're supposed to be on the clock. So this is all stuff that came from the teachers, which is really important that it came out. And we all know that the systems that teachers are using, that's all been refined. Everyone will be using Google Classroom. Everyone will be using Zoom for a video medium. Everyone will be, it's very specific. Everyone will be recording their lessons and housing them somewhere for kids to go watch later. Very specific, so that if you have a child in 4th grade or a child in 6th grade, it looks kind of the same as best we can.
So how do the administrators keep accountability for these?
They're asking for some hefty raises. One of the nice things about Google Classroom, and that's why we selected that tool, is you have a calendar feature that's also part of that, and it embeds the Google Calendar, where administrators can see their teachers' calendars and see exactly what they've scheduled for Zooms. And so it provides that level of, I'm able to have a conversation with teacher A and see what they're talking about, so that I know, will it ever be perfect? No, but I think we've learned a lot from March to June, and I think we know how to rein it in.
But I only bring that up because you made a comment of some teachers saying, well, you shouldn't be on social media.
Yeah. I feel that they're going to be policing themselves more than ever. Yep. Additional considerations, we talk about transportation, the assigned seating on the bus. And assigned seating basically looks like this. First 2 kids on the bus are sitting in the last seat. Next 2 kids are sitting in the next to last seat. You're filling the bus from the back to the front. We're not putting youngers in the front and olders in the back. We can't do that, because then it's going to be intermingling. If there's family members, they're sitting together as best we can. Again, trying to keep the cohorts as close to each other as possible. And the hope is that through that flow, you're always sitting around the same kids. Will it change a little bit from day to day? Yeah, but we're really trying to rein it in. We've also asked in transportation that parents understand that they have a primary residence. That's where they live. The bus will take them there and pick them up there. They'll only have one other location for a sitter. There's no more notes every day. I'm going here, I'm going there. There's a birthday party over here and everybody's getting on this bus. That's not happening. So you can go home or you can go to your sitter. So they're identifying those 2 drop-off points so that we can, figure out transportation. Child nutrition programs will continue. We did get guidance, though, that the remote learners will not have food deliveries to their house, because the summer meal program ends when school starts. So when we start on school on August 20 with the high school, summer program is done. That means the lunch deliveries stop. We will encourage our remote learners to come pick up a takeout if they want lunch, but we will not be delivering anymore at that time, because it's no longer the summer meal program. Adult and continuing ed, making sure that we have their needs met as well. Are we still looking at a separate entrance for adult? So we're now going to have adult ed, the main entrance be down in the old middle school wing, from the inside parking lot where the town gym is on one side. The second doorway will be the adult ed. Am I right with that, Paul? Yeah. So that, again, less adults flowing through the main high school, and they'll have their own entrance for their own access to their classrooms from that point. St. John Valley Technology Center will continue. However, we were very honest that if there is an outbreak in Madawaska Middle High School, we may not be sending Madawaska Middle High School to the tech center, because we don't want that outbreak to spread to 33 and 27, so on and so forth. So we'll have continued conversations around the tech center, but we want to continue those programs as much as we can. kids lacked the hands-on learning from March to June. How do you tell a kid, about welding when they can't go weld? Luckily, some of the students had equipment at their homes, so they were able to have virtual instruction and do a lot, but some of them didn't. So they had some virtual welders, and it's not the same. So we've got to get the kids back into hands-on learning. The calendar, as we said, a couple of changes to the last version that you saw. We are starting the middle high school on August 20, the elementary school on September 3. We approved that last time, but now we're going to be asking you to approve a September 21 start for pre-K, so a delayed start for pre-K. When we also are asking for our January 4th workshop day has been removed, and it's been plugged in to the Monday before school starts. So now we're asking teachers are allowed 3 workshop days to come back, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, instead of 2. And the reason we need that is because of all the social emotional things that we didn't train them for in June. That's going to be something really important that we're getting them ready for on that additional day. Then your principals need a day for their regular school stuff, and then we usually have a district day for to tidy things up. So by moving that January 4 day there, January 4 becomes a student day, so we were able to end school on June 16 now instead of June 17. So those would be the only changes that we're proposing. And then the final section is when someone is sick, which is number 6 of the 6 requirements. What are we doing, or what's happening when someone's sick? Because that's going to be the number one most important thing on people's minds. So we're asking parents to use that screening tool. We're asking them to contact the school immediately if there is a sickness, and it goes through all the different bulleted items. Students will not return to school unless they're fever-free for 24 hours without the medication, so on and so forth. What if there's a family member that's been tested? It goes through all of those guidelines as well to make sure that we're following the CDC guidance and our medical guidance. I'm going to ask Dr. Hart to look over this one last time before we send this out to the folks, just to make sure that we're giving the right guidance and then expectations if required self-quarantine. People need to know that when they get sick, it's going to be okay because you can slide into remote learning. It's not see you in 14 days and good luck. It's okay, we have a plan for you. If this happens, you're going to slide into remote learning. And I know that sounds really easy. It's going to be challenging, but we're going to have to figure it out. I've told the administrative team, I'm sure they're telling their teachers as well, this is not going to be easy. This is going to be the single most difficult thing that we've ever done, is try to start school here after what happened last spring. And we know that there's going to be upset people. There's going to be happy people when they see this. There's going to be upset people and everywhere in between. But we feel that given where our region is, what's happening locally, and the need to have those kids back in school for all the various reasons. I lost sleep this spring not knowing, what was happening in some households, because on a regular week, I get 2 to 3 DHS referrals. I got none from March 13 to June 5. I got 0. And that's scary stuff. So we've got to get these kids back in school. We have some special needs learners that need to be in school. We have young kids that need to have interactions. Is it going to be different? Yes, they're going to have a face mask and all those things, but we really feel that this is our best way to approach it. So I am asking for your approval of this plan, and subsequently also the approval of the regional calendar. By Robert.
Moved by Robert, second by Tammy. Any further discussion? If not, I'll entertain a vote. All in favor? Approved.
Thank you all. As things happen and we change things, I will share with you what we change, if we tweak things. We're not going to change, like entire sections, but if there's an adjustment because we picked up on something, I'll just let you know out of courtesy so that you can keep an eye on that. And that approval was both for the calendar and the plan, right? Okay, perfect.
The lunch program you said for those that choose remote learning, that'll be clearly advertised.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll put that out in a separate memo, just so folks know that this is the last day of lunch, this is how you can get fed moving forward. MPA sports guidance, it makes me laugh because the MPA is holding on, which I get it, but we're gonna be sending kids to school with masks all day long. Yet we wanna have soccer season. I'm having a hard time wrapping my mind around this, and if you've watched what's happening with the Major League Baseball right now, Major League Baseball has not put their players in a bubble like the NBA has or the NHL, and you can see, you know, a team gets it, and then all of a sudden they have 12 members of the team that have it. So I'm hoping that the NPA, you know, is going to think carefully right now what they've proposed, and I gave you a thick packet, I think, of the NPA guidelines. That's the same copy you got last time. What they've added to it is some phase 3 and phase 4 guidance, and essentially phase 3 and phase 4 are identical. The only difference is phase 3 can be for any sport. So if the basketball team had a summer program right now, they can continue through phase 3. Phase 4 is just for fall. But phase 3 and phase 4 are a continuation of phase 2, which is healthy activities, it's conditioning, it's weightlifting, it's everything to get them prepared to be athletic, but it's not sports season related play. So they can't be scrimmaging, they can't be doing any drills, one-on-ones, they can't be doing any of that. They can have soccer balls and juggle and do that type of thing, or wall passes if it's alone, but there's no play, there's no scrimmaging, there's no games throughout these phases. The NPA is also saying that phase 3 and phase 4 extend to September 7, I believe. September 7. I think September 7 is very telling that the majority of schools will have been in session, and then the NPA will come out and make a determination after schools have been in for a little while. We've made a decision as Valley Unified Schools that we're not going to back up 2 weeks for a harvest break adjustment, because we're dropping. Soccer is primarily the concern. The NPA has said that your games will move from 16 to 10, so 10 will be the maximum. With 10 games being the maximum, we can schedule that around harvest and still start with the rest of the state at September 7. We also don't want to be the guinea pig who starts 2 weeks earlier and has the state watching us to see what happens. We don't think that's a good thing for us. So we're gonna hold soup. Tomorrow, the ADs are meeting in Caribou to reschedule everything. All of the games that will be rescheduled for Madawaska are going to be Aroostook County games only, which I think they were anyway beforehand. The county teams will only play the county teams for their 10 games. So Prescott will not be going down to play Old Town, Orono, and Caribou will not as well. They're going to have to play an Aroostook County schedule if we are allowed to start. So they're in the planning stages right now. I need your permission to allow for phase 3 and phase 4. If the NPA comes out and says that they're now moving forward with the season, I'll come to you again for approval or not approval of Madawaska participating in sports after they've come out with that recommendation. They don't have that yet. Right now, it's just for phase 3 and phase 4. So that's the motion, to approve phase 3 and phase 4.
Moved by Robert, for your second. Louis? Any further discussion? If not, I'll entertain a vote. All in favor? Approved. New business.
Under new business, we have no retirements, no resignations, no transfers, no new hires. We are still currently looking for a bookkeeper, payroll specialist. If you know somebody who would fit the bill, send them our way and we'll give them a tour and make it look really good. Yeah, I also want to introduce our new special ed director who is here with us today. Dr. June Sellers is here, so thank you for being here. We're very anxious and eager to work with you.
Golf team.
Yep. Under new business, item B, Lynn's being proactive here on a couple of fronts. Golf is one of those those sports that may be able to pull off the season because of the social distancing. If the NPA does decide to have some sports, golf is one of them, cross-country running, they've spoken about, tennis might be one in the spring. In addition to that, she also has nine kids that have expressed interest in playing golf. Same thing happened in SAD 27. We had kids that just want to play golf now, and we think that it's a good idea to bring that back with your approval. I did ask for a few questions to be answered, and I have that in your packet. Stipend, she did say that she has 3 co-coaches that were willing to do it for free. We basically spoke to them about there needs to be a stipend because it's going to be part of the contract, so we're going to have to work that out. But these co-coaches are not doing it for the money. They simply want to do it because they want to get that sport going. How many matches and travel to where? It looks like it's just going to be 5 matches, Aroostook County matches only, with the various golf clubs in Aroostook County. They'll practice 1 to 2 times a week right at Long Lake Country Club. There will be no green fees for practice. They're going to be allowed to do that. They'll bring their own equipment. And then uniforms, Lynn was going to approach the boosters to buy some golf shirts for that. So we're looking at really minimal costs associated with this. We don't think that it's anything that's going to, impact our budget, especially if some of our team sports are getting reduced, like soccer just did. We're already saving some money from the soccer season, which can, we can help us with the golf team. So the motion is to approve the varsity golf program for Madawaska and bring that back.
Moved by Tammy, second by Louie. Any further discussion? If not, I'll entertain a vote. All in favor? Approved. I think that's great because this is one of those lifetime carryover sports.
I'm terrible. I guarantee you that I'm the worst golfer ever. Can't figure it out. You do have a co-curricular appointment sheet. Last meeting, Mr. Dugal did ask if Matt Rossell was going to come back as our basketball coach, and I told him yes at that time. And a few days later, Mr. Rossell was named the athletic director at Van Buren, so Mr. Rossell will not be joining us because he's taken over that role there. So we will be looking for a boys varsity basketball coach as well as a girls varsity basketball coach. But in this, you'll note that we have varsity golf listed, and we have 3 co-coaches that we're bringing to you: Ethan Wetmore, Sam Sear, and Mike Pelletier. So I'll be looking for approval of this new updated co-curricular athletic position.
Nothing for middle school soccer yet?
Soccer, they haven't moved forward. Last time I spoke to Lynn Wayne, did she give you an update on that?
Nothing yet on middle school.
Nothing on middle school. Yeah, and I think that the athletic directors were waiting tomorrow to speak on all the other groups and find out if everyone is putting the timeline for middle school sports identical with the high school sports. And then they were going to move forward from that. So they're waiting for that meeting to have a little more information.
So are we saying all of the middle school and high school sports that have no coaches listed, are we offering that and there's just no coach that's coming forward?
Correct. Usually it's a lot of phone calls right before a season starts. Hey, do you want to help us out? Do you want to help us out? And then, we can find folks, but
Yeah, we are looking at a girls' JV soccer program. We are
it all depends on numbers.
on numbers, but
Just in the way of a suggestion, I hate talking about the old times. But when I was in high school, if you wore the varsity jacket, the coaches knew or told you that you would either coach or referee or assist with the elementary and middle school programs, and you didn't get paid. It was either you're wearing the jacket, if you don't want to do it, turn it in. Just a thought.
Yeah. Now we have to beg them to play, so I don't know. Step away from your Xbox.
You need a.
Yeah, I need a motion to approve this updated ball.
Moved by Robert.
I'll
Second,
second.
Tammy seconds it. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll entertain a vote. All in favor? Unanimous? Approved.
School lunch prices, every year at this time, I bring you an update. Melanie, our food service director, runs a price equity tool, and it tells us what's going on for pricing and how they should be adjusted. The recommendation this year is to bring up your MES student breakfast, the regular breakfast, bring it up 10 cents to $1.25. And then student lunch, it's also requesting that we bump up 10 cents for the elementary to up to $2.65 and the middle high school up to $2.90. And that's no more than crunching the numbers and they look to see what the sales were versus the food cost, and they can always just adjust that. Sometimes it goes down, more than likely it always goes up, and it's usually in 5 to 10 cent increments.
And these are, do we get subsidies for some of the food and some of the costs?
Well, all of the student reduced and free lunches are all subsidized. This is all full pay, I think, investment.
Been collecting money, has that been an issue?
Actually, this district does really well in collecting. I haven't had an update since we went out on remote learning because we moved to summer meal programming, so it was a non-issue. I'd have to go back and see where we were before that, but comparatively speaking, we do really well in collection.
For use percentage, there was one year where we met a threshold where we had to have some different meal program, where we have to deal with that this year.
We were finding out now. Melanie is running the free and reduced lunch applications,
Okay,
and we'll see where we fall.
continue.
Yeah, I think last year we were around 45%.
Threshold, yeah.
But 2 years ago, we did fall about 50. I think. That's what you're referring to. Yeah.
I'll entertain a motion. We approve it? Do I hear a motion? Moved by Robert, second by Louis. Any further discussion? None? A vote? Approved.
We'd like to propose that we look at using some of our coronavirus relief funds or our CARES funds to purchase additional nursing services for this year. As you know, we did bring Lynn up back to full-time this year. But in speaking with the Health and Wellness Committee Chair, Mr. Karen, who's here, and he can speak to that, there's a real concern with our school nurses not being able to meet the needs if they have to be in 2 places at once. Morning screenings are a concern. If we have a child put in the COVID room or the isolation room, and subsequently there's another one in another school, also, how is she supposed to respond to that if she's the only nurse? So we thought that because we have the same issue in 33, that actually it's a bigger issue in 33 because they have one nurse in 3 buildings. We thought of proposing that Madawaska hire a full-time nurse, and we'll advertise it as a 1-year position, and hopefully we'll get some bites on that, and then contract half of that service back to 33. So essentially you're gaining half a nurse and they're gaining half a nurse. And then we look at a schedule that works well, where I think if that nurse is here in the morning with Lynn and helping with the screening up till noon, and then heads down the road to 33 to help. 33 actually has a registered nurse on staff at the tech center who would be able to help with the screening process in one of their schools to get them through the morning. We're hoping that will work. But I wanted to have conversations with you about that as well. It doesn't have to be funds that came from our regular budget. We would use the emergency funds for it. It's specifically related to COVID-19. Mr. Karen, did you want to talk about conversations you want to have around that?
Yeah, just that the school nurses, since we've been meeting in May and we've been looking at just the magnitude of the different responsibilities and safety and health protocols that are going to be in place. And this is a game group. I mean, they don't shy away from work, but they're legitimately concerned that they're not going to be able to do an effective job responding to safety and health concerns when they are trying to do two different schools, because you can't schedule those kinds of things. And they really feel that they can use some additional help, moving into the upcoming year, at the very least. And I think, Dr. Hart can attest to the need for that moving into the upcoming school year.
Just to say that, the recommendation from the CDC and the Nursing Association on what to do if a child becomes sick during the day. You can screen them all you want for them in the building, but if one in the afternoon if somebody has a fever or other symptoms, what's supposed to happen from the guidelines is that the teacher calls the school nurse or other individual if you don't have a school nurse who puts on full PPE. And if you've seen people in full PPE, it's not like a comfortable thing, okay? And you have to know how to use it appropriately, otherwise it doesn't help you, okay? So then if that person comes to get the child and brings them to the isolation room and calls their mom to come get them, or their dad, or whoever is designated as that child's person. And this is something where in the past, maybe a 12th grader would have a little sniffle and just like not care about it. Different now, so it's gonna happen more often. And so if you don't have a nurse present in that building, someone else would have to step up, learn how to do PPE appropriately, and learn how to take that role, which is not easy if you're not a medical person.
No, that's just one proposal. Another proposal is we hire our own nurse, additional nurse, and we have the benefit of two nurses, one stationed at Madawaska Elementary, one stationed at Madawaska Middle High School, and then I would propose to 33 board that they do the same thing. So I'm only proposing the half item, but if you want to think about a full, that's also something.
So besides symptom monitoring at the start of the school day or when students are arriving, and in the case where they have to report their full PPE to the student that is showing COVID symptoms, what else are they going to be doing?
Regular school nurse required activities, so updating, student records. We have a lot of policies that are going to need to be reviewed and updated. The medical policies, we're hoping to put something on the plate of the school nurses and then consult with our medical advisor on those updates as well. We also have if there's athletic events that need to be monitored and have that as well. So just those typical nursing requirements.
And we went from half-time to full-time on this budget from the 1920 school year to the 2021 school year. So then another minimum half-time.
And I think Lynn was right before.
5/7.
She was 5/7. We brought her whole 7/7. It's one of those decisions where we're not going to know if we're in trouble until we're in trouble. It's difficult.
Just a thought, has anybody contacted the University of Maine in Fort Kent? Could some of their student nurses be clinical?
I think I might be able to address that, Mr. Chairman. I've had some conversations with the University of Maine at Fort Kent, and I know that there needs to be, especially for their upper level clinical students, that need to be doing that. But I think that needs to be happening in hospitals, other healthcare settings, as opposed to schools. And they're going to have to be running a pretty tight-knit cohort as well, and trying to reduce exposure, to their students while also giving them good, high-quality education. So I don't know that we would be able to rely on them as a source to do the amount of work that's going to need to be done. And one of the things that we're looking at doing is not having teachers, when a student says, I'm not feeling well, I feel pukey, say, okay, go to the nurse's office. Now, that is going to trigger an alert, either directly to the nurse or to the main office, and then the nurse is going to have to travel to the student and then bring the student back, do an evaluation, wait with that student until the, you know, the parent comes, and there's gonna be a lot of back and forth, and I think it's that volume that is, you know, proving a little overwhelming, you know, at this juncture, and that's why we're not, you know, we wanna use the COVID funds, you know, make it a one-year position, and just get us through this very, very difficult transition year.
I want to reiterate the expected volume, I think will be higher. So at the hospital level, we are in the process of preparing all the offices to have a much higher volume of people calling in for symptoms that in the past they might not have sought medical attention. Because when people have, you know, some relative from New York State, which is now allowed, came to visit, and 2 weeks later, they have a sniffle. In the past, that sniffle would have been taken care of at home. Here's your allergy pill. You don't have a fever, go to school, okay? And now it's gonna be, well, we have to take that more seriously. So we at the hospital and outpatient practices are gearing up to be prepared for a much higher volume than we've experienced in the past. And so that same idea, I would advocate for this case as well.
And they will be doing some initial evaluations of any staff members to demonstrate, you know, symptoms as well. They'll have that additional responsibility.
In addition, the other thing is that on here, when you can come back to school when you have been sick, the statewide guidelines are gonna actually come out soon. That'll probably be much more complicated than what this says. And they're gonna break it down into major symptoms, mild symptoms. If you have one of these, you do this. If you have two of these, you do that. And you need to have your doctor say it's okay before you come back. And the best person to help enforce that with parents, because one of the choices are, oh yeah, just come back, you can come back. But that's a very medical decision-making tree they're gonna come out with to help avoid keeping all of the sniffles home for 2 weeks, for no good reason, and also try to protect the rest of the student body and the teachers. So that's actually a medical decision-making job that would be better suited as a nurse. In my office, we're gonna have our nurses do that, not even my front desk staff or my medical assistants, and those are more medical than what your teachers are.
Is it being thought about as well when you put that survey out for the parents and the students, who's gonna be doing remote learning as compared to coming to school? I mean, are we putting the cart before the horse? What if, you know, half of the students decide they're gonna be doing remote learning? You know, now we've hired somebody and we've got half the students that are gonna be actually coming to school. So I think that needs to be taken into consideration as well. And then and I appreciate, Dr. Hart, your comments. What can is there the change of responsibilities that some of the nurses can do, and can we have others help out in some of the screening process and have the nurses, you know, get away from some of the parts that they don't need to do that we can have somebody else look at, and then the nurses take on the higher role? Is that something that
If we have a nurse AD, is there AD functions that can be shifted?
I think whereas Lynn, her AD responsibilities happen outside of her nursing requirements. I think she does a good job, you know, managing that. Don't know that the AD is dictating her day. So I don't know if that's a complication.
You're using CARES funds, now you said you're still developing projects and supplies that you want to use that $375,000 for. Do you feel like if we do this, are we gonna sacrifice on PPE or cleaning, or maybe do we need more janitorial staff to be doing cleaning? You know, where we at with?
We did talk about janitorial staff.
We did.
Okay.
We did. And our thought was, like Louis said, let school start and then see where things are, and then come back to you if we feel like, oh, no, you know, we don't need. We can do the same thing with the nurse. There's gonna be a lot of anxious, intense moments, and we have time because the high school's starting alone. right? So that those first 2 weeks, we have time before the elementary starts. But it's something that, we'll have to consider.
For me, I'd like to see the results of your survey.
Yeah.
And then we can see what student population we're working with in schools.
Yeah.
Would you prefer to table that until our next?
That's just my opinion. I mean, what is good for everybody else?
So we have a meetings, our next scheduled meeting is September 14. I think what I would do then is we should meet before the elementary starts and take a look at what those numbers say
Well, when would you get the results of these surveys?
as soon as they come in.
Well, I know, and you're just releasing it maybe tomorrow.
Right.
I mean, even if we had a special meeting prior to that.
Yeah, I think we should.
I think,
Versus waiting until September.
So we'll talk about that at the end. So you want to table this item for now?
Any results of your survey of who you're dealing with for student population?
Motion by Robert, second by Louis, to table it until we get the results of the surveys and then we'll have a special meeting. All in favor? Approved.
As I mentioned, when we we're going through the plan, we're going to have some social, emotional, mental health needs from our students, but also from our staff member. So one of the conversations that Mr. Karen and the health and wellness group were talking about is the possibility of an employee assistance program where we would be looking at a contracted service, ideally through Northern Maine Medical Center, just because of the connection we have with our health advisory and meeting the needs of our staff members so that our school-based social workers and counselors can focus solely on students. So, Mr. Karen, did you want to speak briefly about that as well?
Just that we fully anticipate that there are going to be some fears, some reservations. There's going to be a significant amount of stress. A lot of people are already feeling stressed about starting a new year, trying to get this year's content taken care of while also, getting people caught up. And everybody's excited, about, getting back into the routine, but with that excitement also comes some angst about how are we going to manage all this. And our school is going to look very different, not only for students, but also for staff. And we just want to have in place a service so that we can make a referral to staff, or staff can speak to an administrator who can give them the on-ramp to a self-referral process, some employee assistance services that are related to this particular transition. We're at this point, we just feel that there's a need, and for our school social workers on a good day, when everything's going well, or a good week, they might get to see every single one of the students on their caseloads, every single one of the students that they work with. So they simply cannot take on the additional responsibility of meeting staff needs. And so we would like to, develop an employee assistance program, and we're waiting for some service proposals. But we'd like to kind of get your seal of approval to, continue to pursue that. And then we can come back to you with specific service proposals once we have them. And we think that's an important piece because our students are going to feed off of what our teachers are doing, and that's just the reality. So we need to take care of our educators and our other staff.
So some of the people that you're talking with that provide this service, do they have the opportunity to bill the teacher's insurance for any of this, or is it something that those providing service in the school would pay the counselor, or could the counselors bill the employee's insurance? Is that an option?
Don't believe.
Well, so actually, the way it works for our employee health program, is we're paying for our own employees, have a 4 visits free policy for mental health. And the way we work it is we go through insurance first, but we cover the deductible if it hasn't, so if they're gonna end up paying out of pocket, if the deductible will cover that, or if they have a copay, will cover that. So that's what I, put on administration, staff, and sort of administration out there. Take the team effort to figure out what we're doing. And we just ended up having to come up with something. So, that's the kind of thing I would propose, where we build the insurance first, and that's for our employee assistance program, that's full legit to do. And then for our program, cover their out-of-pocket expense, whatever that might be. So,
Sounds pretty standard, so.
Are you aware of the, there is a statewide helpline, it's free of charge. Are you aware of that? Did you research that? And
That's on the one of our resources here that we put out at the beginning of all this. I think that was one of the resources. I think that's kind of seen as a, as a preliminary point of contact, whereas the employee assistance services are seen as more long-term. And we really like to have a provider in place that is already working with us and understands the entire scope of work. If that answers your question.
What are the wishes of the board?
I'm okay with continuing to look at that PAP program and bringing back a final program for us to. Dr. Hart mentioned some standard industry programs.
I don't think I need that in the form of a motion. We're just going to continue to explore.
Continue to
explore. Bring it back.
Very good.
Item G is an idea that we wanted to take to you. We know that we're going to need staff to be very flexible with changing situations. Originally, when we drafted this, we thought a district floating substitute would fit the bill. We've since rethought that, and we're calling it a temporary support personnel. What we'd like to do is guarantee employment to an individual for the remainder of this calendar year. So that's why, hence the term temporary. So until December 31st, which is the time we can use our CRF funds and hire this personnel to basically be somebody to help in various situations. So we need somebody to monitor temperatures because the nurse has gone here. We can use this person. We need somebody to give this student a ride here. Custodians are all disinfecting classrooms. We're going to use this person. We have a teacher that just went home with a fever. We need to put somebody in that room. This person will be utilized for that as well. So the idea here is to hire 2 individuals, one for the Madawaska Middle High School, one for the elementary school. That would be our temporary support personnel. We would pay them, I think what we discussed, Lucy, correct me if I'm wrong, similar wages to what we pay our substitute teachers now, which I think is the high level is $100 a day. And we would actually advertise specifically to our substitutes, because I think those are the type of folks that want to be in our schools anyway, and so they would fit the bill. Them knowing that they have daily employment until December 31st, I think would be attractive to some of them, but we would need your approval to continue with this idea.
Would this be on a per diem basis, or would they have additional perks?
It would just be a per diem basis. There would be no benefits. We treat it like, did we talk about benefits?
Just the few sick days, couple personal days.
No medical.
was that from September till
December 31st. Because our CRF funds right out then, and we will know if we're out of the woods by then. If that need was so great that we need to continue it beyond that, we'll have discussions about using care funds at that point.
Right, but I'm getting, where I'm going with it is there's gonna be sick time and whatever other time for 4 months.
Prorated.
Program.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
so
instead of two
probation.
personal, we would have one personal, whereas most staffers have two, instead of 14 sick days, and have 7.
So this might be somebody that's already kind of in the system and not needing to go through. Or you're talking somebody straight, you know, walking through the door type thing.
Somebody walked through there, but we would, again, we would put priority to our current substitutes that we already know about.
I'll entertain a motion. Moved by Robert,
And are we moving for 2 on 3 stories? That's what that was the recommendation.
do I hear a second? Second by Tammy. Any further discussion? Hearing none. I'll entertain a vote. All in favor? Opposed? Passed.
Item H, declaration and computation of votes for our school budget. As you know, our school budget did pass 161 affirmative, 93 negative. We have a budget, and I'm glad we're not here talking about budget stuff because that would be a lot to handle. So I believe there are some motions out there that need to be read.
So So voted that the computation and declaration of votes dated and attached here to be, and it is hereby approved. Further voted that the computation and declaration of votes be entered upon the records of Madawaska School Department, the school department. Further voted that a certified copy of the computation and declaration of votes be sent to each of the municipal clerks within the school department.
Second.
All in favor? Almost.
Lucy, they have to sign this form here? Does the
Yes.
number matter?
Mr. Boyce had asked if this was the 4th in a row. You are correct. This is the 4th year in a row on first try.
But before we go to item I, if I could just interject H1, that's the term. I happened to be reading the Bangor Daily News this morning online. There was an article in there talking about testing for radon. And they listed the schools. And one of the schools listed, evidently there's a state law that every 5 years they have to be tested. And Madawaska Elementary School is on the list.
Really?
As not having been tested in 5 years. Anybody know anything about that?
I can tell you a little bit about that. We get notified every so often. The last time I checked, I believe, Paul Don Chassis. Because we have town water, it's a different situation. So we'll have to check on it, but it's not well water at the moment. I think that was the reason.
But radon is-
Radon's got
It's
nothing to
gas.
do with water, well, you could have something with water, but it's more of a ground gas.
Right. That's correct, but if it's in the well and if it dissolves in water or not, but I think we're okay with that. You can check.
It just surprised me to see.
Yeah, the last time we had to check, I got all nervous about it, but it was actually a company that was looking for business.
Oh,
I don't know, I didn't see.
maybe it's Bangor Daily.
I'll check on it.
I'll entertain a motion that we move for executive session. Moved and seconded, all in favor? We're in executive session.
I'm gonna correct myself, it was lead testing last time, not radon.
Okay.
The company that was looking for money. I will check on it. Okay.
Hello?
Hi.